Across the UK, across continental North America, and around the world on the internet, by webcast and by podcast, my name is Howard Hughes, and this is the return of the Unexplained. Well, great reaction still coming in to the Eric Von Daniken show, a show so good that it put us right into the iTunes chart. So thank you very much indeed. Tell your friends about this show. The show that we had scheduled for this time is going to run as the next show. We're doing a little bit of rejigging. It's been a long time since we've had to do this, but there's a very good reason for it. On this edition, we have some hotly topical stuff from Gerald Celente, recorded today as I speak these words. So we're going to get this show straight out to you. Gerald Celente, of course, global trend watcher, and a man who talks about politics and economics in a way that few other people do. He's a regular on shows like Coast to Coast AM and also Alex Jones. Now, if you don't like politics and you don't like world affairs, then you might want to skip forward 30 minutes in this edition, and then you have Buff Parry. This man is a cryptologist, a code breaker of sorts, who's done some remarkable work on what you might call hidden history. So he's the second guest on this one edition, 191. In the next show, Darren Britton, a medium, but a very down-to-earth medium who's very, very interesting indeed. If you think that mediumship is all airy-fairy and out there, this man may change your mind. He's the next show. Thank you very much to Adam Cornwell at Creative Hotspot in Liverpool for getting the shows out to you, and for all of the work that he does, the maintenance and everything else that he does on this show. And thank you above all to you for all of your emails and your contributions to the show. Please keep all of those coming. Go to the website www.theunexplained.tv. Okay, let's not hang about. Guest number one now in the United States, way north of New York, Gerald Celente, global trend watcher. Gerald, nice to have you back on the Unexplained. Your website describes you as a clear voice in a confused world. What does that mean? It tells me that you're stronger than ever, whatever.
Well, I'm a political atheist. I look at things for the way they are, not the way I want them to be. And while I'm thrilled that I'm an American. As I say, my blood is Italian, but my heart is American. I consider myself a citizen of the world. So I look at the data for what it is, and I don't skew it to fit a hidden agenda or a special need.
But you do present the data. We see it in the Trends Research forecasts, the journals that I've looked at, but they seem to point in one pretty clear, or a couple of pretty clear directions that we're being steered towards.
Well, again, when you look at the facts and where they're leading us, if it's the economy, it's very clear. It's the rich of. It's not the 1%, by the way. It's 0.01%. That's who's recovered from the recovery. And then when you look at the geopolitics, the cover of the new TrendsJournal, we're working on it now, and we're calling it Crusades 2000. It's a term actually I coined when I wrote Trends 2000 back in 1996. Nothing's changed. The armor has changed. The weapons have changed. But the same, psychosis and psychotic behavior hasn't changed. Just the flavors are different. The names are different. The places are different. And the weapons are different.
You say nothing's changed, but do you think that the cannon fodder, that's you and I, are perhaps a little more savvy than they used to be? People are learning more. They're looking at alternative news sources?
That's the only way out. And matter of fact, I've been thinking about it a lot. When you hear the same story, everybody believes the same line. And that's what's going on. But still, the mainstream media still has the main focus. Even though the numbers are going down and the amount of people that are listening to them, they still get the major message out there. And for the uninformed, that's what they follow. And they line up as cannon fodder very quickly, very easily, and they're willing to put their lives on the line. No different than World War I. We're going to, save the world for democracy, and so it's. The alternative media is the only way out, the way I see it at this point.
But at least people are beginning to ask questions. I've been watching our Prime Minister over here, David Cameron, over the last few days, and you know that in the UK this is an election year, and it's going to be a big one because there may well be some new forces at play. Over these last days, we've had all sorts of statistics miraculously rolled out that have come out at this time that suggest that the economy is actually hunky-dory now and the rest of Europe is going to hell in a handcart, but we are doing fabulously well. And I think people are starting to question that kind of stuff now.
Yes, they are questioning it. But again, if I were to suggest a business for anyone to get into, it would be propaganda. You can do it very cheaply. It could be transparently stupid, and you'll get great results. So while the people will question it for a while, all they have to do is, well, just like we saw it happen over in France, you have an incident and the whole country rallies around you, false flag or real, fact or infactual, whatever it might be, whatever the situation is. It's easy to rally the sheeple around the flagpole in any country. So yes, the alternative media is the way. It's going to be the way, and we think we are on the cusp of that change right now. Our concern is, do we change before we perish, and follow the belief of what Einstein said? I don't know how the Third World War will be fought, but the fourth will be fought with sticks and stones. We have psychopaths and sociopaths. You talk about Cameron, we have Bush. How about before Cameron? You got Blair. Before Bush, we had before Obama, we had Bush. I mean, it's one psychopath and sociopath after another under the names of prime ministers, chancellors, and presidents.
One of the things you say in one of your recent reports is that a thing called bankism, which we have to explain, I think, to our listeners here, has replaced capitalism as the prevailing economic system. What is bankism?
Well, bankism, look at the guy you got running the show over there, Bank of England, Carney. The term carny, that's a nickname for carnival man, a carny. And that's all they are, another Goldman Sachs guy. Look around the world. Who's running the ECB? Mario Draghi. Where's he from? Goldman Sachs. Who's the guy that deregulated the Glass-Steagall Act in the United States that made it possible for the banks to become these gamblers, these casinos that gamble? And that was Robert Rubin. Where was he from? Goldman Sachs.
But we're being told over here that those days have gone. All the banks have been cleaned up and we've got a big wide eye on them now, so we can't go down that road again.
I have a bridge over here in Brooklyn that you'd really like. I'm telling you, Brooklyn is really thriving these days. I could sell it to you cheaply. Look what the banks have done. I was going through the list. You got this guy who gave the name Too Big to Fail. His name was Treasury Secretary under Bush. Henry Paul, he's taken over Boris Karloff's role in Frankenstein movies now. He came out, he's from a Goldman Sachs guy. So here's the deal with bankism. I'll loan you money at almost nothing. You're a good bank. You're a good friend of mine. I'm the Federal Reserve or the Bank of England or the ECB. And you can loan it out at anything that you can get. Oh, and by the way, you could also loan it to your buddies in the big businesses over there so they could buy back their stock. Don't worry about it. I'll loan you money at 0.25%. Get anything you want for it, but loan it to the big guys really cheaply so they could juice the markets. Oh, and loan it to those private equity groups and those hedge funds and those investment capitalists so they could do big deals as well, so we could prop up these equity markets and make it look like for all the stupid people out there that everything is doing really great as we cut their pensions, we cut their benefits, and by the way, we'll bring their retirement age till after they die. And you know what we'll do? We'll call it austerity measures. God save the Queen.
But Mr. Cameron is saying today that his aim, should he be made Prime Minister next time round, should his party be elected, and this time maybe get an outright majority instead of being in coalition, but whatever he says, his aim is full employment next time round. The good days are back.
Yeah. If he says it, then I must believe it. We got a guy over here who won on the campaign slogan, hope and change you could believe in. No, it's just another fraud. If he hasn't done anything now, what makes you think he's going to do anything later? What's the plan? Tell me the plan. They never tell you the plan.
We have to be balanced here because you're not just saying that about him. You're saying that about all of them, aren't you?
Of course. course I am. As I said, I see them no different than murderers and thieves, Bloods and Crips. You know, as I said, we got Obama before we had Bush. Before that, Clinton, the guy that sold out America more than anybody. It's a corrupt team that's ruining the world. They're sociopaths and psychopaths. You're over there in the UK. How about World War I? Lovely, wasn't it? One of the most avoidable wars in history, other than the wars that followed.
One of the things you said to me a couple of times when we've spoken in the past is that the way that this all works is bullets, bombs, and bankers. So the answer to the problems systemic within the system are, let's have a war, and then we can thin out the population, we can enrich those behind the people making the armaments, and everybody's happy again.
They're doing it again. You could see how the world is marching to war. You just had Cameron and Obama over here. Cameron came here to talk with Obama. I mean, it was a freak show. They're talking. I love how they're going to get Russia too. They're going to punish Russia. Everybody get this in their head. Napoleon, there's a great chart that was done of Napoleon leaving Poland with 420,000 men. He got back to the Polish border with 10,000 men, but he deserted them. Hitler launched the greatest military offensive in world history, only to be defeated by the Russians. The propaganda going on about how we should hate the Russians has been initiated by the United States, and now it's being carried forth by the puppet states of the UK and NATO countries.
So you're saying that we should do, quotes, nothing about Putin?
It's not out unless you want to do it. When you say we, as we used to say, what you mean we, you know.
I don't want to do it.
I don't want to do it. It's not my business. And as history shows, Ukraine was part of Russia for how long? So it's not a NATO issue. It's a money issue. And if you don't believe me, anyone could go to YouTube and type in the name Nuland, Nuland, first name Victoria, wife of Robert Kagan, a maniac over here, neocon that loves hegemony. She is the Assistant Secretary of State. There she is on December 13th, 2013, in Washington, D.C., at the National Press Club, speaking about Ukraine. She's just come back from Kiev. She's the woman that was handing out goodies to the protesters. Over her left shoulder is a Chevron sign. Over her right shoulder is ExxonMobil. Chevron had just cut an $11 billion deal to do hydrofracking. Here she is saying to the group that paid her way that the future of Ukraine is Europe, and Ukrainians are Europeans. This, of course, must be news to those Eastern Ukrainians who consider themselves Russians, but she's the Assistant Secretary of State, so she knows best. And she tells them that the path that they should take, remember this is in 2013, before the overthrow of the Yanukovych government, is to follow the path set forth by the International Monetary Fund. It was an overthrow of a democratically elected government, whether you like them or not, instigated by the United States and fostered by NATO and the United States' other allies.
So what is to be done?
Let them figure it out themselves. We can't. They don't have water in Detroit. Over 58,000 people are being thrown out of their homes because they can't pay their taxes. We've got slums all over this country. Take a ride on the New York City subways. It's a ride in between the 19th and 20th century. We're going to fix what's going on over there? They can't fix the South Bronx. What, are they kidding?
As we record this, Gerald, there's a report out from Oxfam, which is top of the news over here just this afternoon as we speak. You've probably seen it. The wealthiest 1% will soon own more than the rest of the world's population, according to a study by the anti-poverty charity Oxfam. This is the Wire copy I'm reading now. Its research shows that the share of the world's wealth owned by the richest 1% increased from 44% in 2009 to 48% in 2014, and that's expected to go up to 50% next year. This, by the sounds of what you've been saying to me, is no big surprise to you.
Of course not. This is what we're saying. It's bankism. And those are the ones that reap the rewards. It's not capitalism. In capitalism, by the way, there's no such thing as too big to fail. So now we're looking also at the number now that 85 people have more money than half the world's population, 3.5 billion. In the United States, the gap between the rich and the poor is the widest since the Gilded Age. It's, matter of fact, it's greater than it was during the Gilded Age. It's a multinational takeover. And it's period, paragraph, it's in front of everybody's eyes. Once upon a time, there used to be mom and pop shops. Now it's all a multinational chain in a country near you. And the multinational mob is running the world. As you were mentioning before, what they do, and when all else fails, they get you to war. The banks and the bandits make big bucks on the bullets, bombs, and banks. And as I say here in the States, you want to see 6 words that killed it. Well, bullets, bombs, and banks are half of it. The other one's Harvard, Princeton, Yale. And you have your vision and division of it over there.
Okay, well, this is a very depressing outlook, Gerald, and it hasn't changed a great deal since we last spoke. Do you not think that the rise of popular consciousness of people, like you said, using alternative media, of people like Russell Brand, who's made a big hit in the United States, apparently. I heard him on NPR only last week. People like him saying we need to wake up and stand up. And
you're seeing the changes taking place, whether you agree or disagree with him, whether it's UKIP, whether it's Podemos in Spain, whether it's the German parties that are, whether it's the Northern League or the Five-Star Movement in Italy, they're making traction against the established governments. And I believe that in the United States, we're going to see a third-party movement in 2016. I know of no one that's excited that we're going to have either a Bush or a Clinton back in office. So yes, the future is in our hands, and we are on the cusp. But remember, the Renaissance followed the Black Death, where 60% of Europe was killed. People were realizing that, hey, what we're doing now isn't working. Let's go back. A rebirth, a rediscovery. Alla Romana e alla Antica, in the manner of the Romans and the ancients, they used to say in Florence to describe the quality of their work. We're Renaissance ready. We have to go back to a time when there was a level of morality. We have to go back to a time when there was a real spirituality, not a fakeness of it, cloaked in phony religions or people that they like to look up to. And I believe it could happen again, and I think that we're on the cusp of that, because after all, as we see it, it's either do or die. And I also believe that art is the way of finding the true meaning of the human spirit. And again, using that Renaissance model. So out of those people that Oxfam talked about, those that are going to own most of the world's wealth, if a de Medici or two came from the ranks and started putting money into beauty, joy, and greatness, the world would be a different place. So maybe the de Medicis will show up.
But some of these people do give, don't they? They give to the arts, they give to culture.
I'm talking about really giving. I'm talking about giving for beauty and art, as I said. I look at the Bill Gates thing as a big fraud. What are they doing with their money? They're pumping up drug companies all over the world with vaccinations, and they're doing nothing for the arts other than buying it for themselves and hanging it on their walls and driving up the prices of pseudo artists and making it something that it isn't.
But the economy of this country and the economy of your country, it all moves in cycles. The world's economy is cycles. It's up and down. Here in the UK, we're being told we're heading for an up. That does not suggest that there's going to be anything revolutionary happening here anytime soon, does it?
Not unless the people change. But you have a big election coming up, and who knows? UKIP could be, changing the course.
But, you've got Russell Brand on one side, who is seen to have no real policy, and nobody's quite sure where he's coming from politically, but he's saying a lot of stuff. And then you have UKIP. So I'm wondering whether these third forces are as good an idea as you might think they are.
It depends on who they are and what they're doing. I believe it's an excellent idea to break up the Eurozone. It just became a conglomerate for multinationals. I never believed in the euro when it began. As a matter of fact, I did a conference, and Major was there when it was all in the banking. USA Today sponsored it, and I was one of the few people that said that initially it would work, and then it would run into problems as economies began to collapse. So I think the party, each party is different. There are elements within them and elements that work and elements that don't. I mean, when people talk about anti-immigration, does anybody realize why all this immigration is happening? How many more countries do they have to bomb? How many? What is it? How many million Syrians are displaced because of the war created by NATO and the Arab Little League? How many Iraqis were killed? Over 1 million? Some several million displaced? Oh, there's immigration problems? Hey, how about down in Africa? What kind of dictator are they going to pop up next? Well, isn't Hollande down there in Mali now, right? Oh, yeah, bringing freedom and democracy. So it's very complicated. Again, I'm an American, and I believe in what the founding fathers of this country established and the roots of it, and that was no foreign entanglements. Rebuild America. We're launching Occupy Peace on May 2nd for the most historic Four Corners in the United States, right here in colonial Kingston, New York, the only place where there's a pre-Revolutionary War building on each corner. And it's based on the foundations of which this country was built upon. Washington, a real commander-in-chief, not like these little boys running around, these little chicken hawks. This is a guy that led the troops. His farewell address, no foreign entanglements. Madison, no foreign entanglements. Jefferson, no foreign entanglements. Franklin, no foreign entanglements. So we're launching Occupy Peace on May 2nd based upon the Founding Fathers, to honor them, to bring home all the troops, seal the borders, and rebuild America, rather than rebuilding and expanding the military, cyber, and pharmaceutical industrial complex.
And how far do you think you're going to get with it, Gerald?
Well, we're shooting for the moon.
Realistically,
the website is up. It's occupypeace.us. We're just launching it now, and there are a number of people that have climbed on board that may make it the greatest success of the 21st century.
But those were the aims, weren't they, of the Occupy people outside St. Paul's Cathedral in London, close to the City of London, and it never really happened for them, did it?
They didn't have any real aims, and they didn't have any program. This is a battle plan for peace. We're going to have takeaways, strategic actions to take, steps to take to bring peace. And again, this is U.S. based. We say in any country, you do what you want to do. This is what we're doing. And among the things that we're going to be doing are putting limits on the defense budget. We're going to reinstate the need that Congress vote for any war. Do you know that Congress has not voted to go to war since World War II? And the maniacs in chief have pushed us into them, whether it was Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and now Syria.
So this is a manifesto.
Oh, yes. This, as I said, this is an action plan. This isn't just a rally to yell and scream and do nothing.
But who's it for? And you're not a political party.
Well, no, it's going to be, we're putting referendums. We're calling them Proposition Peace. It goes back to direct democracy, like they have over there in Switzerland. So what we're doing is we have a team of legal people that we're going to be working to get it on each ballot in every state. So the people vote. It's direct democracy. We're the ones that fight the wars, and we're the ones that pay for them. Why should we have a bunch of paid-off congressmen and senators telling us what to do when their sons and daughters never go to fight?
So across America, we're going to see a whole series of proposition number whatever it is, from California right across to New York State. And that's how you're hoping to do it, bit by bit.
That's our objective, yes.
What are people saying to you about that? Are you getting a lot of support?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, as I said, the site is up. We just put it up. We haven't finished it yet, but we're putting it up there just to get it going. No, it's huge support. You know, I mean, again, you began by talking about the alternative media, and I was saying that people are only getting one message, and they're sort of speaking from the message that they're getting. But there's that whole other groundswell that's totally against what's going on, that understands that again, it's not me, it was Eisenhower that said it. Again, another general that was a man that was, in the trenches. And his farewell address, that the military-industrial complex is robbing our nation of the genius of the scientists, the sweat of the laborers, and the future of the children. How much more proof do people need? And the maniac solution to peace is more war. Enough already. So let's rebuild our nations by not building military machines and machines of hate and immorality, but rebuild a nation, self-sustaining economies.
You're a regular guest, Gerald, on Alex Jones' show, which I do listen to. You know he's got a lot of opposition. People don't like what he says and the way that he says it. Are you happy to support everything that man says?
I let everybody speak for themselves. My motto is think for yourself, taught to me by my dear father. May his soul rest in peace. And Alex Jones lets me say what I say, and I have nothing to say about what he says. I've been on Oprah, the Today Show, Good Morning America, virtually every show on Fox, BBC, you name it, I go on it. I say what I say, let people say what they say.
One of the things you're saying in one of the Trends research journals that I looked at, and very interesting it was to me, the power of the baby boomers, the boomers, you think that they are a major force for change. Why so?
Because you reach an age, once upon a time in cultures, they used to look up to the elders. Now the baby boomers are becoming the elders. We're approaching 70 years old. I'm not the same guy I was when I was a young kid. I'm not the same guy I was when I was in my 30s, 40s, or 50s. So you keep learning. And you've been around long enough where you could start setting the pace and putting out the information and knowledge for the younger generations to start putting it into action. Again, looking at the revolution in the United States, it was begun by the elders. And so the baby boomers have been around long enough. We have enough experience, knowledge, and we have a lot of us, have the income ability to make things happen. So I believe the hand is the baby boomers. It is a renaissance of many sorts. We have conferences here. And of course, when you subscribe to the journal, you get to see those as well. We just did one, and we wrote about them in the past TrendsJournal as well. June and Stanley Blum. Stanley and June are 95 years old. Stanley began painting at 80 years old. He just published his 5th book of art and poetry, very high quality publication. You keep learning, you keep growing. And the baby boomers are in that age right now where they've seen enough of life to know what it is, and they they can see where it's going to go. And now they can put into practice what they maybe have not done before. And so a lot of them are retired, and now they're going into a second stage. And a lot of them are working because they have to continue working, but they're doing what they want to do and not what they have to do. So we may see something, again, going back to the alternative media. This could be the alternative way.
Trouble is, of course, that the rest of the demographic is being, if you follow the line of argument, being bought off by reality TV and the iPhone 6.
And that's okay, because they'll follow anything. If they'll drink phosphorescent Slurpees and do whatever they're told, they'll move in any direction, as long as that force of that direction is available for them to hear and see.
So Occupy Peace is the new big thing. This is all happening and culminating in May.
May 2nd.
May 2nd. What ultimately do you want to become of that? If we have this conversation in 1 year from now, what do you hope would have happened? That
our bases around the world are closed, that all our troops come home, and that the money being wasted on war is put back into human spiritual development. And again, with art being a major focus of it, to rebuild the infrastructure of this rotting nation, to build an education system that has some meaning rather than what it is now. To honor thy founding fathers and bring what made America. Look, I'm not a kid and stupid in the sense that, I know the atrocities this nation has committed, particularly against the genocide of the people that lived here. But there were a lot of great things about this country too, and so we want to restore the great. And we can't restore it. The business of America used to be business. Now the business of America is war. No more to war, as that song goes,
No more war. Boy George had a song that went "No More War." If that's the one you think.
No more war, yeah.
No more war. I know that song very well. To do what you want to do, you've got to break down a political class, a so-called elite, and you've got to restructure the banking and commerce system. They're two pretty big things to do because they've been around for a long time.
They were put in reign for a long time. We had the Glass-Steagall Act that prohibited the bankers from robbing our nation. All we have to do is put back into place what already was. And it goes with other acts and laws as well, including Robinson-Patman Act, Sherman Antitrust Act, Clayton Antitrust Act, acts that were put in place so that people would have a level playing field and the multinationals wouldn't overtake us. So the opportunities are there. And as I said, if I see another one big trend happening, it's going to be a new third party in the United States. And by the way, that's one of the ways I made my reputation. In my book, Trend Tracking, that I wrote in the late 1980s, I had forecasted a new third party. And for some reason, I mentioned Ross Perot's name. Well, in 1992, that party happened. I believe that party's ready to happen here and ready to happen in countries around the world.
Of course, every time you've had a third-party candidate in a presidential election, that person hasn't done particularly well.
No, it hasn't done it before. But that doesn't mean it can't happen again. At one time, they weren't always Republicans and Democrats. There were different parties as well. I think the time is now.
All fueled by the fact that people are listening to sources of information and looking at sources of information that weren't available to them, say, 15 years ago.
Right, because we could have that internet candidate. It can happen. And that can be the way. And who knows, maybe the internet candidate will come forth in 2016.
Do you want to be president? Would you like to be president?
Well, no way, man. Are you kidding?
I just thought I'd suggest that. All right, if people want to know more about you and your work, I know that we're very much on the clock here and your time's limited. Where do they go?
TrendsJournal.com, TrendsJournal.com. History before it happens.
Gerald, thank you very much indeed.